Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, March 14th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a very, very busy weekend. I've been busy all weekend, nonstop. We didn't broadcast live this past Friday. I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered Friday, March 12th. I'm a panelist on usually each Friday. And one of the things that we talked about on Friday's installment of Roland Martin Unfiltered is Georgia to pass a voter suppression law as calls grow louder for economic boycotts of Georgia companies to stand up for Black voting rights. And, you know, we've been talking about this on the African History Network show the past 2 or 3 weeks. And Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright of Black Voters Matter were guests on Roland Martin Unfiltered Friday. And then Roland went to the panel and we discussed it. Also, Latasha Brown was on the Rachel Maddow show Friday, March 12th as well, a few hours after Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we're going to talk about this. More pressure is building on corporations in Georgia like Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Aflac, Delta, Southern Company, UPS, to speak up on behalf of African Americans and others, but especially African Americans, regarding the bills in the Georgia State Legislature, the HR 531 bill, and bills that are focused on voter suppression, because Republicans are upset about the turnout, about the results in the 2020 election. Okay, HB 531, I should say, HB 531. So we'll talk some about this. There was also a good article from CNBC about this as well. Georgia voting rights activists pressure big corporations to oppose GOP-backed ballot restrictions, GOP-backed ballot restrictions. And this ties into understanding how to leverage our economics to enforce our politics also. How to leverage our economics to enforce our politics. All right, we'll discuss that. Then earlier in the week, I talked briefly about March 8th, 1971. March 8th, 1971. The FBI's counterintelligence program was exposed. And the way it was exposed was the fight of the century, the Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier fight of 1971, provided cover for this mission that, you know, Ali Frazier didn't know about, but this mission of a cab driver, a daycare provider, and 2 college professors organized to break into an FBI office in Pennsylvania, and they stole classified documents that exposed the FBI's counterintelligence program. We're going to talk some about that. That's a very little known piece of history. There was a good article from the Washington Post a few days ago that talked about this. Okay. And then there is, you know, there's a bunch of topics I wanted to talk about on today's show. Some of these will have to do with Monday and Tuesday, because we're here 6 days a week. And I want to make sure I give adequate time to each topic. 1, 2, I don't want to be here longer than 2 hours. Our Sunday show is 2 hours, and I have a lot of work to do. I'm already tired as it is, so I don't want to be here longer than 2 hours. So, you know, we've been talking about the past few days. I've been breaking down what's in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And we've been talking about how African American farmers are going to benefit. It's $10.4 billion in the $1.9 trillion for farmers and $5 billion is going to African American farmers because of decades of, actually about almost a century of discrimination that African American farmers have faced. There was a good article from April Ryan for theguerrilla.com that talked about this. And we've been dealing with this the past few days on the show. Well, you have some Republicans who are upset that African American farmers are getting some type of restitution. We've in 1920 we had about 920,000 African American farmers. Today it's only about 45,000 or so. We've lost millions of acres of land, and you have spineless Senator Lindsey Graham complaining about African American farmers getting some type of restitution, which is really just a drop in the bucket. Okay. So we're going to talk to him about that. Tiffany Cross on MSNBC, The Cross Connection, had a really good slapback for Lindsey Graham. And we've talked about that. We talked about this earlier in the week and how hypocritical it is to Senator Lindsey Graham. But other Republicans are, and some white people, white Republicans, are just upset, but they don't want to deal with a history of racism and discrimination coming from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They don't want to deal with redlining that took place. They don't want to deal with how African American farmers were locked out of government loans, and many of them lost their farms. They don't want to deal with this history of discrimination, okay, while they benefit from these same government policies, while these white farmers benefit from these same government policies. So we'll discuss that a little bit more on today's show also. Right now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show. All right, so I want to jump into this first topic here. So I was a guest on Roland. Well, I was a panelist on Roland Martin Unfiltered, Friday, March 12th, and I've been. Some of you saw the post that I did on Friday from Latasha Brown, Black Voters Matter, and we're going to pull up this post here also. This deals with what's going on in Georgia and the rampant voter suppression that's taking place in Georgia. Okay, so we know there are calls for there are calls for economic boycotts of Coca-Cola, Home Depot, other corporations that are headquartered there in Georgia. And I want to pull up this one tweet in particular here. Okay, so you have, let's go to this here. Protecting voting rights in Georgia. So there was an ad that Black Voters Matter took out in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution newspaper. And we're going to go to clip one here, Jalen, here, just to set everything up. We can go to clip one here in just a second. But they took out this ad, and it shows Representative John Lewis, who unfortunately passed away, Representative John Lewis, And it talks about the bills that are in the state legislature in Georgia, protecting voting rights in Georgia. This week marks the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Okay, we talked about Bloody Sunday a little bit on last Sunday's show. This week marks the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday that led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. However, the Georgia Senate recently passed SB 241. SB 241, Senate Bill 241, one of the worst voter suppression bills in America that will erase the historic gains of expanding voting access. These measures are part of a targeted attack to undermine the voting rights of Black voters, but will also impact all Georgia voters. It will also impact all Georgia voters. We believe the business community has both a responsibility and an opportunity to protect democracy and help stop SB 241 from becoming law, along with other racist anti-democratic bills that will roll back and restrict voting access for Georgia voters. We believe in a state that is moving forward, not backwards. Okay, so we're going to talk about this on the other side of the break. They list some of the corporations here and stop hashtag SB 241. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? We've got Leonard, Lakeisha. Everybody share this broadcast on social media platforms. Okay, stand by. We're on commercial break. We'll be back in 3 minutes. Okay, so this one says we won't patronize these companies and corporations who don't show up for us. When are the businesses going to have enough courage to say we're not going down this road anymore? All right. Okay, stand by. Share this broadcast, everybody. Let me get ready for this next segment here. Stand by. We'll be back from break in 2 minutes. Also, if you like this type of information, you want to support the African History Network, you can do it through Cash App or PayPal. That definitely helps support and helps us keep broadcasting 6 days a week. Just a second here. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael M. Hotep. It is Sunday, March 14th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so right before the break, I was talking about Georgia and the rampant voter suppression that is taking place in Georgia, and we were talking about House Bill 531, and Black Voters Matter. Black Voters Matter they've launched a campaign to protect voting rights in Georgia. They're calling on corporations in Georgia. Some of these same corporations spoke up during the summer 2020 when you had the protests going on surrounding the killing of George Floyd. And we'll talk some about the George Floyd trial this week, Monday and Tuesday show. And some corporations made donations and put out statements of how terrible the killing of George Floyd was, things like this, but they're silent when it comes to the silencing of the political voices of African Americans with House Bill 531 in Georgia, and also Senate Bill 241. Okay. And one of the things that people are doing, and I talked about this the past couple of weeks, is when in Indiana, when you had the transgender bathroom bill in Indiana, you had corporations who came out speaking out in opposition to the transgender bathroom bill a few years ago. Okay, when it was 2015, because Mike Pence was governor of Indiana, he became vice president. You had corporations speaking out in opposition, threatening to cancel conferences and things like this. And within 1 week, the state legislature in the state of Indiana changed the transgender bathroom bill law. Go research this. Within 1 week, they changed the law. The state legislature passed the transgender bathroom bill. There was so much opposition from corporations, from athletes, things like this, right? So the question that some people are asking, and I'm asking, is, well, where are these same corporations who were speaking out? They were speaking up during the summer 2020 when all the protests were going on, the Black Lives Matter protests were going on all across the country, dealing with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. We just commemorated the 1-year anniversary of the killing of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, things like this, and the protesters in the street. People are at home because of COVID-19. Everybody is watching, or they're in the street, okay, protesting. But now you have some of these same corporations that are silent when it comes to rampant voter suppression taking place in Georgia. And some of these same corporations have donated to Republican candidates as well that are doing us harm. So these are things that we talked about on the Friday, March 12th edition of Roland Martin Unfiltered. So I want to go to, we're going to go to this first segment here. This is how it went down. Let's go to clip one, Jalen.
All right, folks, what's happening in Georgia is truly an abomination. And the question is, where are all of the corporations? Why are they so silent? Why are they saying nothing? Why aren't they standing with Black folks to oppose Republican efforts to impose massive voter suppression bill? Folks, it is a shame what's going on. The Georgia Senate recently passed one of the worst voter suppression bills we have seen since the Jim Crow era. Yes, folks, since the Jim Crow era. Now, folks like Black Voters Matter, New Georgia Project, are demanding that corporations step up and do their part to stop this from happening. Joining us right now, the co-founders of Black Voters Matter, Cliff Albright and Latasha Brown. Glad to have y'all on the show. Cliff, this is Cliff and Latasha. It's very interesting. I was reading a piece from Ron Brownstein last night, and they referenced the transgender bathroom bill in North Carolina. And I was like, y'all should have been listening to Roland Martin Unfiltered 3 weeks ago. Then they talked to a civil rights leader who said there's conversations happening among the civil rights people calling for a mass mobilization march in Washington, D.C. for voting rights. And I was like, if y'all were listening to Roland Martin Unfiltered about 3 weeks ago, y'all would learn that as well. And so I get a kick out of this whole deal because I said then, I say now, and I don't care. Black people stood with LGBT groups when that transgender bathroom bill was passed in North Carolina. Major corporations said they're not going to bring movies there. They said Salesforce announced they were not going to be moving jobs there as well. All these different things happening. It was the business community that forced Republicans in North Carolina to back down. It was the business community in Indiana that forced Mike Pence to back down when they passed a transgender bathroom bill there. What y'all are saying and what I'm saying is to LGBT groups, to the business community, to all these other different folks, are y'all going to stand with Black people in this moment because this bill, Latasha, is all about Black people and what Black voters did in this year's election.
Absolutely. There's no question that this bill is targeted at the historic turnout of Black voters in the state of Georgia. And, I think it's really interesting that this is the week out of all weeks. This is the week that we actually are commemorating the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, when our people were beaten on the bridge in Selma, Alabama, to fight for the right to vote. And here we are in the state of Georgia, where Black folks showed out in record numbers. And what we're seeing these draconian laws, these bills that were passed on Monday. And the Senate passed a bill, the omnibus bill, that is just egregious, the worst bills that we've seen since the Jim Crow era. But then it gets better, or worse, wherever place that you sit. On today, less than 3 hours ago, Roland, they basically combined both of those bad bills out of the House. And so the substitute bill that came out of the House about 3 hours ago, matter of fact, their attorneys and some of our partners are still, actually the lawyers are still looking at the bills. They're 88 pages long, and it's actually worse than the bill that was passed on Monday. So the question is, fundamentally, those businesses, those corporations, those groups that are allies that we've stood with, where are you? This is a bill that literally is like Jim Crow era in terms of that will tremendously undermine and impact Black voters in the state of Georgia.
See, the thing here, Cliff, is real simple. If we gonna stand with other folk in your fight, where are you when it comes to ours? If we gonna buy your products, where are you? Y'all took out a full-page ad today in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, specifically naming companies. Y'all have been saying Home Depot, Arthur Blank. Black people built that stadium. Black people in Atlanta helped you become a billionaire with Home Depot. Delta Airlines, just yesterday, big announcement, naming a building after former Mayor Ambassador Andrew Young. Coca-Cola, UPS. We could go all down the line. All folks, the Black History Month pronouncements and King Day celebrations and sponsoring all the Black events all across the country. This is the moment where you have to do what the Coca-Cola CEO did when Atlanta refused, when white business leaders did not want to recognize Dr. King, when he said, Coca-Cola don't need Atlanta. Atlanta needs Coca-Cola. And if y'all don't show up to honor Dr. King, I will pull Coca-Cola out of Atlanta. They all showed up. The business community by themselves could get this law dropped today.
That's right, especially when you look at the fact that the version of the bill that came out of the Senate actually only passed by one vote. Just one vote in the Senate. And so, you mean to tell me we don't think that Coca-Cola, with all of its marketing genius, right? Like you got people walking around who've been saying have a Coke and a smile for like 3 decades now, right? That Coca-Cola knows how to deliver a message when they want to. They know how to do some fancy ads when they want to. They know how to use the full force of their creativity and their economics and their politics and their political leverage in order to deliver a message when they want to. You mean to tell me that they couldn't have, if they had exerted more public pressure, they couldn't have persuaded just one vote? If they had done that, we wouldn't be in this situation right now, right? And so that's what we're saying to these companies. It does us little good, as you pointed out, Roland, for you to have all these nice statements and commercials, talk about Black Lives Matter and talking about the legacy of John Lewis and how much he's meant to this state and to this country. But then when the rubber meets the road, right, when you got voter suppression that's out there, all of a sudden you want to be silent. And in fact, it's really worse than being silent, because in many ways, they're not just not picking a side. They've actually been complicit in the voter suppression. We've talked on this show before about the ways that they've given their political donations to some of these Republicans that are pushing this voter suppression. So we're not having it. We're telling them that it will not be business as usual. We've got this campaign. You mentioned the ad that we put out today. We took it a step further from last week. Last week, we named the company. This week, the ad that we put out, full-page ad, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, this week we took it a step further. We put the phone numbers and the email addresses for the CEOs of those 6 companies that we've been targeting. And this weekend, we're actually taking it to them. We're actually going to be doing a visit to the world of Coca-Cola. We're all going to have a Coke and a smile as we tell them that they need to take a stand against voter suppression.
Hey, pause it right there, Jalen. Pause it right there for me and just back it up maybe about 20, 30 seconds. Okay, so this is the ad that we have up now. This is, you can follow Black Voters Matter on Twitter. Now this is Latasha. This is Miss Latasha Brown on Twitter. She tweeted this on Friday, March 12th, and we talked about it on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I shared it on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. So this is the full-page ad that they took out in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Once again, this deals with understanding how to leverage our economics to enforce our politics. Back in 2018, when I interviewed one of my teachers, Dr. Claude Anderson, and I've interviewed Dr. Claude Anderson a number of times, and I need to give him a call and check on him also. I talked to him back October 16th, 2020. But Dr. Claude Anderson talks about leveraging our economics to enforce our politics, okay? And, sometimes I talk, he and I argued like the whole day. Like we talked for an hour last time I talked, we argued like the whole time because we go back and forth. And at the end of the day, after I lay out all the facts, he's forced to agree with me usually. But a lot of times we argue. But we have to understand how to leverage our economics to enforce our politics. And this is one of the things that took place during the civil rights movement. You had economic boycotts that took place. This is something that's lacking now. And this is something that in the Black Lives Matter movement, you really don't see economic boycotts taking place, especially nationwide economic boycotts, economic withdrawal strategies. April 3rd, 1968, Dr. King, in his last speech, I've been to the mountaintop, said we have to always anchor our external direct action. We have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. We have to always anchor our external direct action with the power of economic withdrawal. And then he talks about, because he's speaking to the sanitation workers and others in Memphis, Tennessee. And he talks about boycotting Wonder Bread and Heart's Bread and Sealtest Milk and Coca-Cola. He mentioned specifically boycotting Coca-Cola in Memphis, Tennessee, because of these 4 corporations' discriminatory hiring practices when it comes to African Americans. Okay, so what they're saying is that, well, wait a second. In 2015, when you had the Indiana transgender bathroom bill, then in 2016, you had the transgender bathroom bill in North Carolina. Some of these same corporations showed up for the LGBT community. I said back then, I was doing nationally syndicated radio in 2016. I said back then, okay, I said, if you at these corporations, I said, if you're going to speak out, if you're going to speak up and speak out for LGBTQ, are you going to speak out for BLACK? If you speak out for LGBTQ, are you going to speak out for BLACK? Because we spend billions of dollars a year with these corporations, but they're largely silent. Now, this was before, of course, George Floyd. But they're largely silent on things that are happening to us. And when you go, I can't stress this enough. I covered this with the Indiana bathroom bill. I covered this basically like every day, what was going on. When you go research this, within 1 week, there was so much pressure from corporate America threatening to cancel conferences in Indiana, different things like this. There was so much pressure that the state legislature in Indiana changed the bill in 1 week. They changed the bill in 1 week. I want to go to. We'll go back to the clip in just a second here, Jalen. Just hold on. There was an article from the Newsweek.com that I had up. I need to pull this back up from Newsweek. There was an article from Newsweek.com back from 2016. And this is dealing with, let me see, what was the date on this here? This is dealing with, hold on, where is it? This is dealing with the North Carolina bill. This is from 2016. This is dealing with the North Carolina bill. And they go through and they show a comprehensive timeline of what took place. Okay. I want to switch over and show you this quickly here. Then we're going to go back to this this segment here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, let's look at this article here. This is called a comprehensive timeline of public figures boycotting North Carolina over the HB2 bathroom bill. Okay, I talked about this while this was happening. This is from September 14th, 2016. Okay. Now the question we should ask ourselves: all the black entertainers winning awards at the Grammys tonight, and part of you getting the award is based upon record sales and streaming, how many streams you have, things like this. Well, African Americans contributed largely to that. African Americans contributed largely to you being able to be on the stage tonight. Where are you when it comes out to this? We know you talked about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Where are you when it comes to this? A comprehensive timeline of public figures boycotting North Carolina, the HB2 bathroom bill, especially the artists that call us the N word and the B word and talk about their WAPs and stuff like that. Especially, where y'all on this? The NCAA Monday evening announced plans to move 7 2016-2017 championship events out of North Carolina due to the state's controversial HB2 bathroom bill. Now, did the NCAA talk about canceling any game? I know they're in the playoffs and all that stuff right now. I know that, but even not just Georgia, there are 253 bills in 43 state legislatures that Republicans are pushing that are voter suppression bills right now. Is the NCAA talking about canceling any games in any of these states? Because these voter suppression bills target African Americans, especially. Are they talking about canceling any of these? Are they speaking out on what's going on in Georgia? 3 of these 7 championships are Division I events, including part of the first 2 rounds of March Madness. March Madness is going on right now. Is the NCAA speaking out about this? They spoke out about the bathroom bill, the transgender bathroom bill in 2016. Now, if you spoke up for LGBT, you're going to speak up for BLACK? Or is it just George Floyd and that's it? Is it just Black Lives Matter and that's it? On Wednesday, now keep in mind, this is from September 2016. On Wednesday, the ACC decided to move its championships out of the state as well. They moved NCAA games out of North Carolina over a bathroom bill. Nobody died. Nobody was killed. They didn't say that transgender people couldn't vote or they weren't trying to attack their voting rights. Quote, fairness is about more than the opportunity to participate in college sports or even compete for championships, said NCAA President Mark Emmert. We believe in providing a safe and respectful environment at our events and are committed to providing the best experience possible for college students, fans, and everyone taking part in our championships. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But then we go down, it gets better. Now, this is North Carolina. You got to go back and study Indiana, because Indiana happened first. March 24th, only a day after Governor Pat McCrory signed HB2 into state law, production studio Lionsgate tells employees that it will no longer be filming the pilot for the Hulu series Crushed in Charlotte. Production had been scheduled to begin in April. Blah, blah. Has Lionsgate canceled? Have they stopped in any of these states? It doesn't have to be just Georgia. There's 43 state legislatures trying to crack down on voting rights. Has Lionsgate done anything? March 31st, Wicked composer Stephen Schwartz writes an email detailing his decision to prohibit any institution in North Carolina from putting on a production of any of his shows. Have any directors said none of these none of these states can put on production of their show? I know COVID is going on, but stuff is opening back up. I just find it interesting. This is over transgender people and being able to go to the bathroom. I mean, having a special bathroom or what have you, whatever the hell the bill was. But some of these same corporations are silent right now. But they spoke up when all the protests were going on for George Floyd during the summer, and everybody's attention was on the protests, and they're saying, okay, where the corporations, were you going to speak up, blah, blah, blah. So they spoke up and gave lukewarm statements or, things like this, donated some money. But now they have laryngitis. April 1st, a group of 269 children's book authors and illustrators pen an open letter to their North Carolina readers detailing their disappointment with HB2. PayPal, April 5th, PayPal cancels plans to open. I remember this happened. I reported on all this stuff in 2016 when it happened with North Carolina. And I said, if you speak out for LGBT, are you going to speak out for BLACK? Or are you going to have laryngitis when it comes to us? PayPal, April 5th, 2016. PayPal cancels plans to open a new facility in North Carolina that would have created 400 new jobs. The withdrawal comes only 2 weeks after plans for the new facility were initially announced. So you had corporations engaging in economic withdrawal over transgender people being able to go to the bathroom of their choice. Now, I'm not against them speaking out for LGBT. My question is, are you going to speak up for BLACK? Or are you going to have laryngitis and amnesia? That's my question. Because I don't have amnesia. I went back in my archives and retrieved all this stuff. I've got thousands of articles. I'm worse than Google, tell you the truth. Let's go back to this clip here. This is from Roland Martin Unfiltered, March 12th, 2021. I was on the panel right now. He's speaking with Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright, co-founders of Black Voters Matter. Let's go back to this clip, Jalen.
Out today, we took it a step further from last week. Last week, we named the company. This week, the ad that we put out, full-page ad, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This week, we took it a step further. We put the phone numbers and the email addresses for the CEOs of those 6 companies that we've been targeting. And this weekend, we're actually taking it to them. We're actually going to be doing a visit to the world of Coca-Cola. We're all going to have a Coke and a smile as we tell them that they need to take a stand against voter suppression.
See, the thing here, Latasha, that folk have to understand is you passed this law. Look, we already see they've already passed laws, voter suppression law in Iowa. Republicans, a Senate committee in Florida, passed out of committee to have no ballot drop boxes. 0.
Right.
Not That's one right. per county. None.
That's right.
They are Texas, North Carolina. We can start going state after state after state because they are afraid of Black people and they are scared to death of 2022. And so they're like, oh, man. And you got a Republican in Arizona who literally said everybody should not vote. He, out of his mouth, said they should not vote. Everyone should have a right to vote.
Roland, the bottom line is what makes Georgia so dangerous is that this Georgia bill is not just about Georgia. That we have to really recognize that this bill will set a precedent. That we're seeing this all across this country. We're seeing over 30 states have these bills. There are hundreds of bills that have been introduced right now. And so while Georgia is ground zero for voter suppression, I think that it also sets a tone and it actually will send a message all across the nation. So this fundamentally not only will affect and impact Black voters, but it will really undermine the very fabric of democracy. And so what we have to really be able to do is not just say that we're going to call the Republicans out Although we've got to call the Republicans out, not just in their political capacity, but also they have an economic interest as well. Just this week, our partners down in Hancock County, Georgia, literally launched a campaign to make sure that literally the sponsor of this Senate bill, who happens to also be the district attorney, the county attorney, like they literally massed the campaign and said, how can you represent the county and you don't even want the citizens, which is a majority black county, to participate in this election cycle? And as a result, the county commission passed an order for a vote of 4-0, canceling his contract, wanting to literally fire him. Bring up for him to be fired as the county administrator. We are literally not, this is, as Brother Cliff said, this is a business as usual. We have to literally let people know how serious we are. Like, if you don't understand fairness and you don't understand justice, what you will understand is you understand money. And black people have economic power in this country. Matter of fact, just as a consumer base, we will be the 12th largest nation in the world with our spending, our buyer power. And so now we've got to literally not create any space for people to actually sit on the fence when our very fundamental rights are at stake. And no, we're not going to go back to 1965 or march across any bridges. What we're going to do is we're going to start hitting them where the money resides. We're going to start hitting them in the pocket. We're going to start exposing them, and we're going to literally start directing our campaigns in a way that literally is about lifting up our community, but holding the entire ecosystem, from the business sector to the political sector, whether you're Republican, the Democrat, whoever. That at the end of the day, we expect people, right, to stand strong as it relates to democracy, and under no circumstances are we just going to give away our vote and have to work hard, be punished because we showed up at the polls.
And the thing here, Cliff, look, folk don't get what's right. They don't get what's fair. They don't get what's just. So fine, they get money.
They get money.
You might be a broke ass poor Republican in Georgia, but if all of a sudden you sort of have an economic boycott, and all of a sudden we're not going to shop at certain places. See, I'm talking about this. To me, what this is about what Dr. King and SCLC and Breadbasket did with Seal Test Milk. What they did with Seal Test Milk was they were protesting Seal Test Milk. They then protested. They protested, and everybody who's listening, go listen to Dr. King's speech to the SCLC convention in August of 1967. You can hear this speech online. It's like an hour and a half speech. They go there. They're protesting Seal Test Milk, but the convenience store that was selling the milk, they completely shut it down. Within 48 hours, the CEO of that store chain all across Ohio said to Seal Test Milk, if y'all do not change your policies, I'm pulling your milk off of all my stores, because he did not want the pickets at his stores. And so they were not protesting his stores, but he sold Seal Test Milk. So what you're saying is real simple. Okay, you're going to hit the companies. You're going to hit the companies that do business with the companies. You're going to hit the companies that do business with the companies that do business with the company, because America only understands the dollar. And you start hitting that money, folks going to start paying attention and go, y'all need to pull that thing. Y'all need to pull that thing.
All right. Pause it right there. Pause it right there, Jalen. Okay. For the sake of time, we'll share some more of this, that segment there. We'll share some more on our Monday Night Show. For the sake of time, Jalen, let's go to clip number 2, because we're coming up here on the break. And clip number 2 is probably like the best part. 29:30 mark. Let's go to clip number 2, Jalen.
Michael, it's all about pressure.
Absolutely, Roland. You know, this is our 3rd week in a row talking about this. It's about pressure, and it's about leveraging our economics to enforce our politics. And, you know, it's a term that I use. I call it economic guerrilla warfare. This is what we have to engage in all 50 states. not just Georgia. You know, and there's some key things that they said in the interview. Number one, Cliff Albright talked about scripts. Okay, when I used to work in the call center for Netflix, and there was a conflict with Rush Limbaugh show. Okay, Rush Limbaugh had his people call into Netflix. It was a dispute over Netflix removing ads from Rush Limbaugh show. He had his people call into Netflix, and they were reading from a script saying if you don't start advertising again with Netflix, we're going to cancel our subscriptions. Okay, so we have to understand our history of economic withdrawal strategies. And I'm so proud of what they're doing right now, but we have to put leverage on them all 50 states. One quick question I had, Roland, are any other major civil rights organizations working with them, NAACP, Urban League, nationally? Are they working with them to help put pressure? Because they have contacts with these corporations.
Well, again, just waiting for here. You know, again, they got contacts for the corporations. And look, I hear from the corporations. But bottom line is they're still, you know, sort of like this, you know, where they going to go, stuff along those lines.
Okay, so one of the things is, you know this also, Roland. You've talked about this for a number of years on your show. When you have economic withdrawal strategies, economic boycotts, there's stages that you go through. One of the stages is meeting with the corporation. Oftentimes that meeting can happen before the actual economic boycott takes place. So I was just wondering, I'm happy with what they're doing. I was just wondering at what stage are they in with certain things dealing with this. But you know, so that's why I was asking that. And this is extremely important also. Last week on the show, when you interviewed them last Friday, they talked about some of these corporations financing Republicans who are working against our interests, okay? Not just in the state of Georgia, but nationwide. And then we look at the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan that just passed. Not a single Republican in the House or Senate voted for the bill. So we also have to understand that we have to stop financing our own dehumanization. So this is why I'm so happy what they did. And I shared this, I shared their flyer from Latasha's Twitter page. I shared it on our Facebook fan page today also. We need to galvanize support around this and redistribute the pain.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, look.
Pause right there, Jalen.
If you don't.
Pause right there, man. I like that guy. I need to get him on the show. All right. We have to redistribute the pain. Seriously. Read it. This is a page directly from Dr. King's last speech. I've been to the mountaintop. People focus on the last 2 minutes of the speech. He's talking about getting to the mountaintop. He talked about economic empowerment. He talked about redistributing the pain, and he called out corporations to have economic boycotts. He talked about taking money out of Tri-State Bank, which is he was talking about taking money out of white banks in Memphis, Tennessee, and putting your money in Tri-State Bank, which was a black-owned bank in Memphis, Tennessee. So, okay, we'll continue this on the other side of the break, and then I want to go to this article from CNBC. There's a good article from CNBC that talks about Georgia voting rights activists pressure big corporations to oppose GOP-backed ballot restrictions. Then we're going to transition. We'll deal with the fight of the century, Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, March 8th, 1971, and how that fight laid cover for activists to break into the FBI office in Pennsylvania and steal documents which led to the counterintelligence program being exposed. Okay, now Ali and Frazier didn't have nothing to do with this, but you know, you had this huge historic event that led to something else huge happening as well. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by, everybody. Stand by. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, how's everybody doing? We'll bring this back up. The businesses they're boycotting. And what they really should do, now these are businesses that are headquartered in Georgia, but what they really need to do is there has to be, these boycotts need to be in all 50 states. There has to be economic boycotts in all 50 states. Let's see here. Here's the, I'm going to copy the tweet. We'll post a link to the tweet here. Copy link to tweet. You got Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Delta, UPS, Southern Company, and Aflac. We'll post this link here. Yeah, see, when you deal with economic withdrawal strategies, your strength is when you have nationwide boycotts and African Americans from all over the country get involved and target a handful of companies. As long as it's just people in Georgia trying to take on these national and international companies, that's not where your leverage is. Your leverage is when you have a 50-state strategy putting pressure on 4, 5, 6 companies, 6 corporations. That's where your leverage is. Okay, stand by. We're on commercial break. We'll be back from break in like 3 minutes. How's everybody doing? All right, we'll be back from break in 2 minutes.
Wait, 910 AM Superstation, a division of Adele Media. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media.
All right. Yeah, they said we got to make sure we play that on Michael Imhotep show because that Negro's crazy. They said we got... They said, look, that's him. That's him talking. That ain't us. All right. But I deal with facts and evidence. I don't deal with views and opinions. I can document. Proper documentation ends all conversation. I can back up what I say. I don't deal with feelings and beliefs and opinions, usually. Okay, 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a quick question or comment. Okay, we got Melvin, we've got Ann Smith watching on, what are they watching on Facebook? We're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, as well. Okay, so I want to go to this article here. Then we got to get to how the counterintelligence program was exposed in March of 1971. So somebody asked, Sis Ray Lay asked before the break names of the companies. Once again, here they are. You can go to Black Voters Matter. I think their website is blackvotersmatter.org. Let me see. Hold on. It had a website here. Or Black Voters Matter. They need to put the website more prominent on this flyer here. But it's on their Facebook page. But when we look at the companies, Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Delta Airlines, UPS, Southern Company, and Aflac. And they have the names of the phone numbers and email addresses to the companies, have the phone numbers to the headquarters, things like that. And let's see here. We'll pull up the website. Black Voters Matter Fund.org. Black Voters Matter Fund, F-U-N-D. Black Voters Matter Fund.org is their website. Okay, so you can check that out. We'll post a link here to the website as well. And they have all the information there. They have scripts that you can use. They have it really organized. This is what it takes. But see, but here's the thing. Now, national chapter of the NAACP, maybe they're helping out. If they're not, they should. If they're not, Derek Johnson, president and CEO of the NAACP, maybe he's helping out. If he's not, he should, because Coca-Cola donates to the NAACP. All right. I've looked at their, and I'm gonna pull it up right now. I've looked at their annual statements. It's at their website, naacp.org. All right. They get a lot of money from corporations. Okay, which causes a conflict sometimes, but it is what it is. Let me see here. Youth College, the Field Resources Awards, NAACP store. Okay, I have to find it, but they have their annual report on their website, and in their annual report, it shows the corporations that donate to them. Okay, because they are a 501c3, that is stipulated. That's part of the regulations and being a 501c3. You have to make public who donates to you. You have to show some type of accounting, things like that. All right, so they do that. And let me see. All right, I'll have to find it later. Okay, but if we look at this article here from CNBC, this is from a couple of days ago. Let's see, when is this from? March 14th. Oh, yeah. Okay. March 14th, 2021. Georgia voting rights activists pressure big corporations to oppose GOP-backed ballot restrictions. And we're going to go to clip 3 in just a second from the Rachel Maddow show, Jalen. Civil rights and activist groups are turning up the pressure on large Georgia companies like Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines to oppose sweeping voting restrictions proposed by Republican state legislators. They're urging major Georgia-based corporations to speak out publicly against the proposed voting restrictions and to stop donating money to the Republican legislators sponsoring the bills, because they're working against our own interests. They're working against our own interests, and we're financing our own dehumanization when we spend money with these corporations. Also, just to be quite honest with you, the same thing, that's a couple of things, and I don't want to deviate too far from this. The same thing has to be done with these corporations that advertise on Fox News. The same thing has to be done with them. And these are some of the same corporations, Coca-Cola and Home Depot. I think they probably advertise on Fox News. Also, because the Grammys just took place, a lot of these entertainment companies our pension fund dollars are partly invested in some of these entertainment companies that put out negative corporate controlled hip hop. And once again, we're financing our own dehumanization as well. So we have to look and see where our 401k dollars are invested and our pension fund dollars are invested. Because some of them are invested in entertainment companies that put out music and imagery that's attacking African Americans, attacking our youth and destroying our minds. We're financing our own dehumanization. So we have to understand this concept of economic withdrawal, all right? And understand how we are participating in financing our own dehumanization on multiple levels. Okay, so let's go back to this. Let's go back to this article quickly here. Then we'll go to the phone lines. They're urging major Georgia-based corporations to speak out publicly against the proposed voting restrictions and to stop donating money to the Republican legislators sponsoring the bills. Advocacy groups are turning to Georgia's powerful business community because they say trying to sway GOP lawmakers alone has little effect. Yeah, you go after the people who help finance their campaigns, who donated to their campaigns. Go after them. And one of the things that could be done, is you go to fec.gov, Federal Elections Commission. Okay, now fec.gov shows you this deals with federal elections, U.S. House of Representatives, U.S. Senate, and President. Everybody and every corporation that donates to somebody running in the federal election gets reported. It's at fec.gov. It's public knowledge. Okay. Now, one of the ways that people found out about this is when the public hanging woman, Cindy Hyde Smith, in Mississippi, okay, when Cindy Hyde Smith made her statement about being in the front row at a public hanging, okay, it was one of her supporters, and she said that if he asked me to, I'll be in the front row at a public hanging for him or something like that, right? And Mississippi had the most number of lynchings, something like 588 lynchings from around 1882 to 1968, something like that. So Mississippi had the most number of lynchings. Okay, so what happened was, there was an article from, I think it was ProPublica, but there was an article that listed the corporations that donated to Little Cindy. Then, when the corporations got exposed to donating to Little Cindy, guess what? They started asking for their money back. Kind of like that dumbass that donated $2.5 million to the Trump super PAC. And let's pull up this article. This is one of my favorite articles here. And Washington Post wrote an article about it as well. This one right here. Oh, this is a classic one right here. So what happened with Cindy Hyde Smith reminds me of this genius right here. Let's look at this one. Trump supporter who gave $2.5 million to fight election fraud wants money back. Why would you want your money back? They didn't do a good job. They didn't get the job done. What happened? They didn't give it the old college try. What happened? Businessman Friedrich Eshelman sues pro-Trump election ethics group, citing disappointing results of effort to expose cheating. Oh, you got conned. That's what happened. You got conned. Okay. This is from November 28th, 2020, and Washington Post has a more updated article. But this talks about this businessman that donated $2.5 million to this pro-Trump group called True the Vote, a pro-Trump election ethics group. Okay, that's a contradiction right there. Trump and ethics, right? Pro-Trump and election ethics. They don't belong in the same sentence. And what happened was he donated $2.5 million. Long story short, they kept losing lawsuit after lawsuit. They weren't providing results. And he wants his money back. They said, look, we'll give you $1 million if you don't sue us for the 2.5. All right. He wants all of his money back. They weren't delivering results. So that reminds me of Little Cindy. So if we look at abcnews.com, abcnews.go.com, official website of ABC News. Now, this is from December 31st, 2018, where the public hanging woman, Cindy Hyde Smith, got herself in trouble. Republican Cindy Hyde Smith did not return over $50,000 in corporate donations following scandal-plagued campaign. So what happened was an article was written exposing a lot of these corporations that we spend money with, and they donated to the public hanging woman, who's a Republican, and who talked about how she votes in lockstep with Donald Trump. She said something like 100% of the time, maybe it was 98, 99.9, but close to 100% of the time. Despite calls for refunds, new campaign filings show Mississippi Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith kept $50,000 in donations from major companies like Walmart and Facebook in the wake of her controversial special election victory in November. Why is Facebook donating to the public hanging woman? Why is Walmart donating to the public hanging woman? The latest Federal Election Commission filing released amid the government shutdown at the end of last week showed that Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith did not issue refunds to most other corporate donors who asked for their campaign contributions to be returned in November in the wake of her, quote, public hanging comment. Her public hanging, end quote, comment. What happened was these corporations got exposed to contributing to Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith of the great state of Mississippi because of her public hanging comments. And Mississippi had the largest number of lynchings in the country in history. From when you look at NAACP and they track lynchings, okay, and they look at from something like I think about 1882 to about 1968, something like that. We'll pull up the information here dealing with lynchings. Okay, so there was a big article written that showed all these corporations that donated to Cindy Hyde-Smith. They got bad publicity, so then they said we want our money back. The question I would ask is, why did you donate to her dumb ass in the first place? That's what I want to know. Okay, let's look at this information here dealing with the history section from NAACP.org. Okay, this deals with lynchings. Okay, a history of lynchings. This is at their website as well, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP.org, their national website. Okay, and you can just search for. I just searched for lynchings, and it came up because I ain't had time to go through the tabs. Throughout the late 19th century, racial tension grew throughout the United States. More of this tension was noticeable in the southern parts of the United States. But Malcolm X said, anytime you south of the Canadian border, you're in the South. So I live in Michigan. So yeah, that is the South too. Just in case you're confused. Yeah, that's the South. Okay. In the South, people were blaming their financial problems on the newly freed slaves that lived around them. Lynchings were becoming a popular way of resolving some of the anger that whites had in relation to free blacks. From 1882 to 1968, I was correct, 4,743 lynchings occurred in the United States. Of these people that were lynched, 3,446 were black, because what happened was groups like the Klan, and they weren't the only group, but groups like the Klan, they were not just lynching African Americans, they were lynching Republicans. They were lynching white Republicans, okay, because there were 1,297 white people who were lynched as well. The blacks lynched accounted for 72.7% of people lynched from 1882 to 1968. Okay, these numbers seem large, but it is not known. These numbers seem large, but it is known that not all of the lynchings were ever recorded. Out of the 4,743 people lynched, only 1,297 white people were lynched. Okay, because white Republicans were being targeted by groups like the Klan and some Democrats, or you just had white people that may not have had a political affiliation. They may not belong to a political party, but they were attacking Republicans, white Republicans also. That is only 27.3%. Many of the whites were lynched for helping black, or many of the whites were lynched for helping the black or being anti-lynching, and even for domestic crimes. Okay, so now they go through and break this down by state. Mississippi had the highest lynchings from 1882 to 1968 with 581. 581. Yep, 581. Georgia was second with 531. Okay. Now, Georgia is where these rampant voter suppression laws are taking place right now in the state legislatures. They're trying to lynch us at the ballot box. And Texas was third with 493. 79% of lynching happened in the South. Okay. So read this right here. This is from NAACP.org, their official website for the national chapter of the NAACP. History of lynchings. History of lynchings. Okay. So when you had these corporations that got exposed for donating to the public hanging woman, information like this came out. You can go back and look at articles at this time because I was one of the ones talking about this. Okay. They say, wait a second, she's joking about being at a public hanging, but Mississippi was the state that had the most number of lynchings from 1882 to 1968. Mississippi is where Emmett Till was lynched. That was Money, Mississippi. August 28th, 1955. Mississippi, in Philadelphia, Mississippi, is where Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney were killed June 21st, 1964, the civil rights workers. So then when you look at this article, what's so great about it is they name all these corporations that donated money to the public hanging woman. They were running for cover. They were putting out statements trying to distance themselves from her. Let's scroll down. Let's look at this here. A host of companies, including several of the country's most high profile, denounced Cindy Hyde-Smith's comments and publicly demanded refund. Well, why the hell did you donate to her in the first place? You just found out how stupid she was? Among them, Aetna, Amgen, AT&T, Boston Scientific, Facebook, Google, Leidos, Leidos, Major League Baseball, Pfizer, Union Pacific, Walmart. Now, Cindy Hyde-Smith apologized publicly, okay, at the only debate between the two candidates. She was running against Mike Espy. This came out when she's running, just to show you how ironic this is, right? If Mike Espy had have won that Senate election, this was in 2018, Mike Espy would have been the first U.S. senator since Reconstruction from Mississippi. Hiram Rhodes Revels was the first black U.S. senator from Mississippi. That was in the 1870s. And if Mike Espy had won this election in 2018, he would have been, he would have made history. But Cindy Hyde-Smith was financed by white corporations, the public hanging woman, and they got exposed. So we have to leverage our economics to enforce our politics as well. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael M. Hotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. One commercial break. We got to squeeze in the rest of the stuff here. Okay. I got to get ready for this next segment here. We got to go to the Rachel Maddow show next. Okay, read this full article here about the public hanging woman. Okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to some of this we have to may push to tomorrow night. I want to squeeze this in because I want to talk about the Elaine, Arkansas race ride of 1919 also. We want to try to squeeze that in as well. So let me look and see where we are here. There's so much information. Stand by. We'll be back in just a minute here. Okay. I got to go to this clip. When we get back, then we got to go to, we're going to deal with the black farmers. We'll talk about that a little bit, the black farmers. We're going to squeeze that in. That's what we'll do. All right, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Man, this seems like Friday, but it's Sunday. The week hasn't started yet. The first black U.S. senator from Mississippi. The first black U.S. senator from Mississippi since Reconstruction, Mike Espy, would have won. You've had black senators since Reconstruction. He would have been the first black U.S. senator from the state of Mississippi since Reconstruction. Welcome back to the African History Network show, right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael M. Hotep. It is Sunday, March 14th, 2021. We're live. All right, you all can still register for the online course that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. I forgot to tell you that at the beginning of the show. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I teach that on Tuesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's an online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. We deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors also, and how the Moors take the teachings out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, and take that into Europe. And that's what's going to bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. And also, it's going to lead to transatlantic slave trade taking place as well. We deal with that history, what leads to it taking place. Okay, so we just posted the link here. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So I do the classes live. All the classes are recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. So as soon as you register, you can watch the class from this past week. A couple weeks ago, our guest speaker was Dr. David M. Hotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. I have to call him as well because his new book, The First Americans Were Africans Revisited, is coming out sometime this month. And then a week before that, our guest speaker was Sister Nubia Wartford, who's a cultural anthropologist. We dealt with the origins of ancient Kush and the African queens of antiquity. So the class is regularly $130, on sale $80. You can watch from around the world. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right, so right before the break, we were talking about what's going on in Georgia and the effort to leverage our economics to put economic pressure on corporations to speak out on our behalf, to put pressure on the Georgia state legislature and shut down what's taking place, like corporations did with the Indiana and North Carolina bathroom bills, okay, back in 2015 and 2016. Let's go quickly to the phone lines here. Let's go to line one. I think we have Melvin. Line one, Melvin, welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from. Thanks for holding.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. I'm calling from Louisiana.
Louisiana. Okay, you guys send Senator Bill Cassidy down there, right? Louisiana.
Yeah.
It looks like Herman Monster from the Monsters. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, listen, brother. My question is kind of twofold. I'll be really quick with it.
Okay.
First, as we talk about the boycotting of the corporations, etc., just wondering, with all of the heavy hitters, entertainers, etc., there in Georgia, are they on board? Are they speaking out? And because as we already know, people don't mind us entertaining and all that kind of stuff, but when it comes to being in charge, you crickets. Secondly, is anyone challenging the NFL with this funny commercial about supporting the Justice Act? You know, there are three pieces. Is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, 2020 HR. Okay. 7120. Then there's just the Justice Act, and then there's one Judge Trump that agreed to. So the Justice Act only has 4 components that they're working on. The George Floyd one has 14,
right,
by California Congresswoman Karen Bass, and then just the one that Trump was trying to push only had 1 piece. So
we ain't worried about the one that Trump was trying to push. The one Trump was trying to push, that one was sponsored by Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Yeah, we ain't worried about that. That's a weak one. That's a weak one. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is the strong one. The problem is that you're gonna need 10 Republicans in the Senate to vote for it, because you need 60 votes.
Right.
You need 60 votes. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say I understand clearly. I've done research on it holistically. I have a podcast myself called Nobody Asked Me Guys Show. I've had Congresswoman Karen Bass on my show talking about that, along with some members of the Floyd family.
Right. Now it's passed the House. Just so not to interrupt you, but just so people know,
yes, I know.
It's passed the House of Representatives. The uphill battle is in the Senate, because you need 60 votes in the Senate. So if all Republicans, including Joe Manchin of West Virginia, if all Democrats vote for the bill, you still need 10 Republicans, and it's not clear now. That I said before, there needs to be economic pressure put on these corporations to then put pressure on the GOP in the Senate to push this bill. Okay, so but go ahead.
No, you're right on point. That's why I was asking the question, because you have, I want to be kind here, but you have idiots like Herschel Walker coming out talking about reparations, all that. You have a lot of so-called, I call them so-called black Republicans, black conservatives,
right,
and that kind of thing. And they're always talking about economics. So I was just wondering if anyone had actually called them to the table, to the carpet, quite frankly, to address these issues and to
I don't know,
help to support some of these companies, because voter suppression covers them as well.
Yeah, I don't know. See, they only talk about economics as long as it doesn't threaten their paychecks in their radio shows. They only talk about economics as long as it doesn't threaten white supremacy. When it threatens white supremacy, or you see what just happened with Stacey Dash. Okay, now Stacey Dash wants to get invited back to the cookout, so she's apologizing for statements. But it's like, wait a second, Stacey, it's not like you just made one statement. You made multiple statements over a number of years while you were on Fox News and the checks were coming in. Okay, now the tide has turned. Republicans have lost the House. The Republicans lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. Now the tide has turned. Now you want to get invited back to the cookout, and you want to apologize all this stuff. It's like, okay. So now with the entertainers, I don't know yet. Okay, I've only known about this initiative from Black Voters Matter for maybe 3 weeks. I don't know what's going on with the entertainers. They should be speaking out, because they spoke out. Well, some of them spoke out for the Indiana transgender bathroom bill, and they spoke out for the North Carolina transgender bathroom bill. All right, so they should be they should be speaking out and using their leverage to push this. And it's not just all the onus should not be on African American entertainers. It should be on white entertainers also.
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not.
Absolutely.
Okay. It should be across the board.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
What I was asking. You have all of these owners and CEOs there with the Falcons and with the Hawks and other prominent individuals there in the city that are, and I call white people my less melanated brothers. So we have our other less melanated that should be speaking out, and I just
because they're going to be hurt by these. They're going to be hurt by these voter restriction laws in various ways. Also, because one of the things that they're targeting is mail-in ballots as well, and who gets to vote through mail-in ballots. The conditions, especially in Georgia, the reasons why they had no excuse mail-in voting in Georgia since 2005, and it was passed under a Republican state legislature. It was a Republican bill, but now that African Americans have learned about mail-in voting in Georgia, and we used it to our advantage, now they want to change the law that you've had for 15 years in Georgia. Yeah. Okay, man. I gotta run. I gotta get this other stuff in. Okay. Thanks for calling, Melvin. Okay. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a quick question or comment. Okay, I want to go to this. We're gonna go to clip 3. Jalen. Okay, so this is from the Rachel Maddow show, Friday, March 12th, 2021. So a few hours after we did Roland Martin Unfiltered, Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter, was on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC talking about corporations have a responsibility. Georgia farms pressed to stand up for voting rights. Let's go to this clip.
Help me understand the strategic thinking here, this decision to engage the biggest of big businesses in Georgia to try to get them on your side on this.
You know, corporations have a responsibility. That they have a responsibility. We work there, we serve on their boards, we're actually consumers. So Black people in the state of Georgia, who consume $106 billion a part of the economy here. And so we think that they have a civic responsibility. This is an attack on Black voters, but this is also an attack on democracy. And so what we're saying is this is a prime opportunity. Many of these companies like Coca-Cola ran campaigns last year saying that they were standing with the Black community and Black Lives Matter movement around racial equity and racial justice. And we're saying that this right here is a prime opportunity for them to stand up, use their leverage power, and really push and stop these bills that will roll back voting access up until from Reconstruction. And so we're calling them the question that it should be a opportune time for them to really stand up, use their power, and stand for what they know is the right thing to do.
And how open are their doors as you and your colleagues are starting to push on them now? As you say, a lot of these corporations have been trying to have a public face that is progressive, that is inclusive, that does identify with movements for justice, particularly around racial justice. Does that mean that they are more receptive to this kind of message, to this kind of pressure? Are they hearing you?
No, we think that they need to respond much stronger. We're there. There's been a couple of comments, a couple of statements. That's not enough. We need to see action. And we know that they have the political leverage. They have the leverage to really be able to put pressure. When we look at those bills, when we look at the Senate bill that passed on Monday, ironically, the same day that we were celebrating the 56th anniversary commemoration of Bloody Sunday, that literally, when you look at it, only passed by one vote. We know that Coca-Cola and Aflac and UPS and Southern Company, all of those companies have a tremendous amount of political access and leverage power. And so we're not seeing the kind of action, the kind of pressure we think we need to see, including the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, to really say this is not going to happen in our state, because ultimately democracy is good for business.
It's interesting to hear you push it down that many levels in terms of what you want to see for them, because I do think that we can see that they want the public relations credit for being on the right side of issues like this. But as you point out, just saying you're on one side of this isn't nearly enough in a fight like this, which is going to be lost unless something changes in terms of the momentum. You think that these businesses could become active participants in the process. They could bring their lobbying skill, strength, and money to bear to really put political pressure here. And it's not essentially that they're already willing to pay lip service, but in terms of actually doing the work to stop these bills, you're not really getting anything from them yet. Is that fair?
Absolutely, Rachel. You know, when we think about, let's think about what happened with the bathroom bill in North Carolina. It was because of corporate pressure that bill was killed. When you go back and you look at even the abortion bill that was proposed a few years ago here in Georgia, it was corporate pressure along with community organizing that killed that bill. And so we're saying, as we live in a community together, that we are consumers, that we know this is the right thing to do. It's all predicated on a big lie, on a lie that Trump told. But then what we're seeing is these punitive efforts for Black voters for using their civic responsibility. And so we believe that corporations also have a responsibility to stand along with the communities that support them. Just as we support them, we expect them to support us. It's not good enough for us just to watch a commercial. They want us to buy a Coke, right? And so we're saying the same thing. It's not just good enough to actually say that you're going to do a statement. We want to see you use the full political power that you have and your leverage and stand strong with what you know are racist and anti-democratic views.
Okay, so
thinking about is
I think that was the end of that clip, right? Okay, I think we went to the next clip. Okay, so that was from Friday, March 12th, 2021, the Rachel Maddow show, MSNBC. Name of that clip is "Corporations Have a Responsibility. Georgia Farms Pressed to Stand Up for Voting Rights." Georgia Farms pressed to stand up for voting rights. All right, very quickly, before we go to the next story, I want to go back to this article from CNBC.com. Georgia voting rights activists pressure big corporations to oppose GOP-backed ballot restrictions. This is from March 14th, 2021. Okay. So if we scroll down, we see Stacey Abrams here. They know Stacey Abrams is going to run for governor in 2022. They're trying to stop Stacey Abrams. Okay, so it says groups including Black Voters Matter, the New Georgia Project Action Fund, and the Georgia NAACP on Friday, that's Friday, March 12th, launched the next phase of their campaign in local press and on social media, asking supporters to directly contact CEOs, presidents, and headquarters of major Georgia-based corporations. They're using them to speak out publicly against the proposed voting restrictions and to stop donating money to the Republican legislators sponsoring the bills. The voting restriction bills come after historic turnout from Georgia voters, particularly from Black voters and voters of color, during the November general and January runoff elections, when Republicans lost the presidential and U.S. Senate races for the first time in decades. Now, if we go down here, Republican lawmakers in March passed a bill, March 2021, passed a bill in the state Senate that would eliminate no excuse absentee voting, and in the House that would limit weekend early voting. Increase ID, they're targeting souls to the poll voting also, okay? Yeah, where especially African Americans go to vote after church on Sunday. Increase ID requirements for absentee voting and restrict ballot drop boxes. SB 241 and HB 531. These proposed restrictions would disproportionately harm voters, and analysis by the Brennan Center for Justice found. Okay, so read this full article here. This is from CNBC.com. Georgia voting rights activists pressure big corporations to oppose GOP-backed ballot restrictions. All right, I want to squeeze in this. We're going to quickly here squeeze in this next story. We'll talk about it some more on Monday's show. I've been talking about, African American farmers, the plight of African American farmers, for a past few weeks now, and we see that in the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, there's $10.4 billion targeted towards farmers, and $5 billion of that is targeted toward African American farmers. Okay, and you've heard me talk about this past few days on the show. So there was a segment from on Tiffany Cross's show, Cross Connection, on MSNBC, where she responded to Senator Lindsey Graham. Now, we talked about Senator Lindsey Graham on Thursday's show, because Senator Lindsey Graham is upset that African American farmers are getting this restitution, and he calls it reparations. It's not reparations, okay? And I think he's using the term reparations because amongst a lot of white people, reparations has a negative connotation, okay? It's a negative term. So he's going to use that term. He knows good and well this is not reparations, okay? So we talked about this, and there was an article from Fox News as well that I shared on our Thursday show. We'll show you that article here in just a minute. But I want to go to, we're going to go to this clip here in just a second. But this is to deal with almost a century of racism and discrimination that African American farmers have faced when it comes to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and getting loans from the federal government for their farms, and how they were discriminated against. Okay, there was an article from Fox News. Farmers react to billions. Farmers react to billions in COVID-19 relief bill for Black farmers. Where did common sense go? Farmers react to billions in COVID-19 relief bill for Black farmers. Where did common sense go? Even though white farmers basically got $28 billion because of Donald Trump's his China trade war, his Chinese trade war. Basically, white farmers got $28 billion because African American farmers largely were locked out of that for the most part. So I want to go to this clip here, and then this clip ties into the Elaine, Arkansas race riot, which we'll try to squeeze in and talk a little bit about. So let's go to I'm going to go to this clip from the Cross Connection. Let me see what this is. I think I sent you that clip, Jalen. Did I send that to you? Hold on. Let me see here. I think I sent that to you. Did I send you that? Did I send you that clip on Lindsey Graham gets history lesson on why Black farmers deserve aid in COVID relief bill? I think I sent that to you. Oh, okay. Let me send that to you now. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna send that to you now. Just cue that up, and we'll go right to that. Okay, I'm sending that to you right now. All right. So when we look at this here, let's go look at the one from the griot from Maple Ryan. And this all ties into history. And this goes into also the history dealing with the Great Depression and things like the Farmers Home Association that was created in 1930 and how it was discriminating against African American farmers. So President Joe Biden's allocation of $5 billion, billion with a B, in the American Rescue Plan has Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina upset. Little Lindsey's not upset that he plays golf with a traitor to the Union who tried to incite an insurrection to overthrow the government. He's not upset about that. He's upset about African American farmers getting $5 billion after almost 100 years of racism and discrimination. Okay, so Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina is upset. Overall, $10.4 billion is earmarked for the nation's farmers, and half of that is going to Black farmers. John Boyd, head of the National Black Farmers Association, says those billions are needed to help sustain and revive a dying industry. John Boyd said, we're quite frankly faced with extinction. If we can't get a new generation of young people involved in agriculture and farming, Blacks and other farmers of color into farming, you won't see it. Okay, now counting the number of Black farmers in this nation currently, he says 46,000 Black farmers are left in the country, according to the U.S. Census. We're down from 1 million farm families at the turn of the century. And you're dealing with Black farmers who filed a lawsuit back in the 1990s. Okay, the Pickford lawsuit. And they filed a lawsuit against the United States Department of Agriculture for discrimination in the loan program. Let's go to this clip here.
Okay, so Ron Johnson isn't the only person talking crazy this week. This week, your boy, Senator Lindsey Graham, the habitual line crosser, and Donald Trump's Theon Greyjoy, yet again stepped out of pocket. I'll tell you how in a minute, but before I get into that, travel back in time with me to Elaine, Arkansas, during the bloody summer of 1919. In this small town on the Mississippi River, Black sharecroppers were being shaken down by white landowners. Each season, the landowners would demand obscene percentages of the profits, and they would never present the sharecroppers detailed accounting and would trap them with alleged cooked-up debts. So the Black folks knew joining a union would be their only way to survive it. It was the evening of September 30th when the sharecroppers and their families gathered in Hoops Bowl Church to discuss joining the Progressive Farmers and Household Union. They also aimed to buy the land they worked and had planned to hire a white lawyer to represent them with the landlords. The news of their plans leaked. At around 11 p.m., a group of local white men, some of whom were likely affiliated with law enforcement, fired shots into the church. With their wives and children inside, black men like these, later dubbed the Elaine 12, were not just going to lay down and die. They returned fire, and a white man was killed. And then rumors that an organized insurrection against white residents rapidly spread across town. The governor at the time called for 500 soldiers to round up the heavily armed Negroes, he called them. The troops, along with white vigilantes, were under orders to shoot and kill any Negro who refused to surrender immediately. But obviously, no one was ever given an opportunity to surrender, which, let's keep it real, would of course meant death anyway. So for 5 days, they embarked on a killing spree, hunting black people within a 200-mile radius. By the time the chaos ended, the white mob had murdered more than 200 African Americans indiscriminately. Men, women, and children were all slaughtered. Not one white person was ever held accountable for any of those deaths. Today, Elaine is a majority black town where many of the residents live below the poverty line. So you can imagine how infuriating it might be to hear Lindsey Graham say this about a small portion of the COVID relief bill that provides a $5 billion fund for disadvantaged farmers, about a quarter of whom happen to be black.
Let me give you an example of something that really bothers me. In this bill, if you're a farmer, your loan will be forgiven up to 120% of your loan, not 100%, but 120% of your loan if you're socially disadvantaged, if you're African American, some other minority. But if you're white person, if you're a white woman, no forgiveness. That's reparations. What does that got to do with COVID?
This debt relief will begin to rectify decades of broken promises and discrimination from the USDA that caused black farmers to lose roughly 90% of their land between 1910 and today. So call it whatever you like, Lindsey. Not everyone is designed to keep eating fertilizer from the people who so publicly disrespect them. We leave that to you. But just so you know, this money falls way short of reparations, because black farmers damn sure deserve better, way better than what this country has given them.
Okay, so that is from the Cross Connection on MSNBC. So that's Tiffany Cross. You used to hear Tiffany Cross on Reverend Al Sharpton's radio show on Tuesday. You know, you hear Reverend Al Sharpton Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 910 a.m. Superstation WFDF. Keeping it real with Reverend Al Sharpton. Tiffany Cross has her own show on the weekend on MSNBC. So that's a segment of that. That is from March 13th. That's from March 13th, 2021. She gave she gave little Lindsey a spanking. The name of that clip is, what's the name of that clip here? Just a second. Lindsey Graham gets history lesson on why black farmers deserve aid in COVID relief bill. Lindsey Graham gets history lesson on why black farmers deserve aid in COVID relief bill. That portion of the bill, that is largely due to Reverend Raphael Warnock and Senator Cory Booker. I know Reverend Raphael Warnock was pushing one bill. I think his was the Justice for Black Farmers bill. Senator Cory Booker was pushing another bill to help African American farmers. That's in that 1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. We'll talk some more about the Elaine, Arkansas race riot in 1919 on Monday or Tuesday show. Read this article here from SmithsonianMag.com, official website of the Smithsonian Institute. The massacre of black sharecroppers that led the Supreme Court to curb the racial disparities of the justice system. The massacre of black sharecroppers that led the Supreme Court to curb the racial disparities of the justice system. Okay, and then also read the one from blackpast.org, Elaine, Arkansas riot of 1919. Okay, and this is during the Red Summer of 1919 that I've talked about a number of times before as well. All right, this is one of the last. There's over 25 major race riots in 1919 all across the country. It was known as the Red Summer. It was called the Red Summer by James Weldon Johnson, who wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing in 1899, which became the Black National Anthem. And James Weldon Johnson said the streets of America were flowing with blood. Okay, lastly, let's get to this last story here. And we may talk about this some more on tomorrow night's show. So we're not going to be able to get to it the way I really want to get to it today. But March 8th, 1971, the FBI's counterintelligence program was exposed, okay? The Zen Education Project has an article about this, but also there's an article from the Washington Post as well, dealing with the Ali Frazier 1971 Fight of the Century, okay? And that's why I have my Muhammad Ali shirt on. The Ali Frazier 1971 Fight of the Century provided cover for a mission to expose the FBI. Okay, so this is a little known piece of history. But if we look at this quickly here, everybody's familiar basically with the counterintelligence program, but not how it was exposed. Okay, it was hidden for a long time. Let's see here, just a second. Okay. So on March 8th, 1971, a cab driver, a daycare provider, and two professors broke into an FBI office in Media, Pennsylvania, and stole more than 1,000 classified documents that they then mailed anonymously to several U.S. Newspapers. Okay. They were members of the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI, the Citizens Commission to investigate the FBI. They selected the night of the fight of the century, the boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier. All right, now this is Ali coming back to the ring after being out of the ring for basically 3.5 years, and he won his lawsuit. He won his case against the U.S. government. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in his favor. And then he comes back into the ring, and Joe Frazier is the heavyweight champ. And Joe Frazier knocks down Ali in the 15th round. Ali ends up losing that fight, but he's going to come back and beat Joe Frazier twice. All right. And Ali, we know in 74, Ali beats George Foreman to become heavyweight champion again. Now the document. So what happened was they selected these people who broke into the FBI office. They selected the night of the fight of the century, the boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, when most people would be glued to their radios. The documents revealed the FBI's counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO, which was a series of covert and often illegal activities. The FBI conducted surveillance, infiltration, discreditation, and the disruption of domestic political organizations, including actions that led to murder. We'll talk about this some more probably later on this week. Thanks for tuning in to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, Future Radio. Stay tuned for the best of Reverend Al Sharpton. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll continue for a little while longer. All right, talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. Okay, stand by, everybody. Okay, also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network. $ the AHN show through Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. Also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. When you donate through Cash App, be sure to type in $ the AHN show for Cash App. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's bring this up. Okay, yeah, it's a lot to cover. So we'll talk about some more about this on Monday's show. But I want to squeeze some of this in. This is a little known piece of history. So what March 8th, 1971 is most remembered for is that epic fight between Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. It stopped the country in its tracks and the world, it seemed, on its axis. Muhammad Ali was the most famous athlete on earth and possibly its most loquacious human. He had become a face and voice of the anti-war movement. The previous year, he had beaten in court the boxing officials who in 1967 stripped him of the title that Frazier acquired. Now, swashbuckling billionaire sports team owner Jack Kent Cooke of the Washington football franchise and the Los Angeles Lakers put up $4.5 million of the fight's record $5 million purse. He sold its broadcast rights. And let me bring this up on another screen here. Okay. Just a second here. Let's flip back over. All right. Okay, so he sold its broadcasting rights in dozens of countries, but not in the United States, where he prohibited networks from showing or even describing the action. Instead, you could watch it live only at a few hundred theaters and arenas that sold tickets for closed circuit screenings. You also could buy one of the 20,455 seats at Madison Square Garden, but they sold out in a few hours to the rich and famous. Plumage, Pimps, and Hustlers, fight publicist Bobby Goodman described it in Sports Illustrated, who was there. Woody Allen, Diana Ross in Black Velvet Hot Pants, Bill Cosby, Barbara Streisand, Harlem Drug King, Frank Lucas, who the movie American Gangster is about. And they actually show that fight. They show Frank Lucas attending that fight in the movie American Gangster, where Frank Lucas is portrayed by Denzel Washington. Okay, so very interesting how all these historical events tie together. And Frank Lucas was there in the fur coat that his wife bought him. All right, so that's an excellent movie, American Gangster, starring Denzel Washington. Paul Newman was there, Senator Ted Kennedy. Now, let me scroll down here. So around 8 p.m. that day, when the commission believed the Ali Frazier fight was to start, you have them driving to the motel in Media, Pennsylvania, and they are going to park the car near the building housing the FBI office. And one of them is going to grab a briefcase that has a locksmith toolkit in it, locksmith tools. And they're going to go to the second floor, okay, where it is. They're going to go to the second floor, but they were surprised to find an extra lock installed that one of the people, Bonnie Raines, who surveilled the office during business hours, pretending to have interest in an FBI job, had not reported. So they cased the joint. Okay. So they said we had to scrap the whole plan. So he hustled back to the motel and reported the problem. Time was of the essence, but while monitoring the proceedings at the garden on the radio, the commission realized the main fight had not started and would not start until after 10 p.m. So the group decided if one of them should return to the FBI office and use a crowbar to pop the lock. The building caretaker, lived on the first floor directly below the FBI office. Quote, from the caretaker's apartment, I could hear crowd noise from the fight. My idea was one big noise was better than a lot of small noises. So I waited for a crowd roar and then gave the crowbar a big shove. It worked, but something heavy was behind the door. I didn't want to knock it over, so I decided to slide it. Inch by inch, he went, hoping every roar of the crowd would muffle the noise he was making. Finally, he made it and notified the quartet of commission members who were to clean out the office. Quote, the four who went into the office say they could hear the fight on people's radios in the apartments in that building. They said it was a good thing that the fight was later because it was right at the right time to be in the office. We'll talk about this some more on either Monday or Tuesday show. We're out of time here. I really got to get out of here. So thanks for tuning in. Register for the online course I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Next class is Tuesday, March 16th, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As soon as you register, you can watch the previous classes, okay? This is an 8-week, 16-hour online course that I teach. We'll probably have 9 classes because I had a couple of guest speakers. And I think I may have to do 9 classes to get all the information in, okay? So be sure to check that out. And you can visit our website. It's right on the homepage of our website, right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. All right. So remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. Thanks for tuning in.